I felt it important to make a quick statement and just address the current situation on the ground. At the moment, the economy is experiencing certain pressures. Emaswati are starting to feel the pressure of rising costs. And I felt it necessary to address, to say, what is the country doing about it? What is the government doing about it? How can we assist? And what to expect as Emaswati as the months go by under the current pressures that we are under. So first of all, as we all know, we have the normal economic pressures, which the world is feeling from the COVID. As Eswatini, there's been a certain amount of unrest causing additional pressure in our system. But now on top of it all, we've had the Russia-Ukraine war that's ongoing, also adding additional pressure to the current prices and to the cost of living to the man on the street and to everybody. As a government, we are looking at the factors that are affecting the Emaswati most. The main ones being the cost of food, the second one being the cost of fuel, and the third one that's going to have an adverse effect on the rest is the cost of fertilizer. Emaswati is a large agro industry in Eswatini and a lot of subsistence farming, and for that reason fertilizer becomes quite a large player when it comes to the costs rising as they are. At the moment, the inflation figures are not looking that bad, but we are expecting the inflation to continue to rise in Eswatini. We're hoping that it won't get to a double digit as it is in many countries around the world, but at the same time we're doing everything we can to try to keep this as low as possible. Let's start on the fuel. So firstly, one has got the fuel price. What we have built into the fuel price during the good times is an extra 50 cents which we charge on the fuel price, which goes into a fuel stabilization fund, which is run by the Ministry of Natural Resources, so that in times like this, if there is a fuel spike or if there is variation in the price, this stabilization fund is there to be able to help cushion the fuel price. And so fortunately, when the fuel crisis hit, there was over 500 million emalangeni in the fuel stabilization fund. During the last few months, there's been times when up to 5 emalangeni a litre has been coming from the fuel stabilization fund to be able to cushion the price of fuel to the industry. Now, unfortunately, we have had to still pass certain costs through because that fund has only got so much in. The fund is already starting to reach the end of its life. At the moment, there's around 100 million still left in the fund, but at the same time, it has been used quite aggressively and quite quickly. But even as we speak, there is still a cushioning effect from the stabilization fund on the fuel price. So that has really helped to keep the fuel price, even though it has risen, it has kept it so it hasn't risen to even higher figures than what we currently have. When it comes to the fertilizer and the staple food price, the Minister of Agriculture last week did make an announcement where we have approached ADB Bank for a specific loan to be able to boost the import food subsidy scheme. So what we have there is Emaswati that plants maize in Eswatini normally get a 50% refund or subsidy when it comes to the input costs of planting maize. That has been increased to 65% from 50% from government, which means now the farmers only put in 35% of that fund. And that fund is, we normally have about 40 million emalangeni in the budget. We are adding on top of that about 120 million emalangeni to that. So that is the total amount now that will be available, and that will be there for the input subsidy scheme. That'll be able to make sure that the high cost of fertilizer has got a much lower impact on the growers, as well as the fact that the input subsidy more or less keeps the farmer. It'll still be a little bit more expensive to grow, but at the same time it should cushion the cost of planting maize. One is to keep in mind, even though the cost of maize might still go up, so the farmers can still expect, because of the global grain shortage, probably a higher, obviously these things will still be out there, but the price will probably go up because of the whole world grappling with higher fertilizer prices. The cost of grain will probably go up, and that'll obviously help the farmers to get a better price for their maize in the following planting season. But at the same time, it should also mean that the price shouldn't shoot up too high in Eswatini. So which means that by us cushioning the fertilizer price, as government, we should also be cushioning the maize price to a certain extent, meaning that government is trying what they can to try and have these cushions in place to be able to help farmers and to be able to even help the man on the street when it comes to the cost of maize. That'll be in Eswatini around this time next year. So with those measures in place, we believe that it'll be able to help the man on the street. As one will know, EEC has also come with a scheme where the poor that use only a small amount of electricity can also apply for the cheaper electricity prices. We believe that can also act as a cushion to be able to make sure that for the poor, specifically on the power charges, that they don't escalate too badly. At the same time, EEC and the regulator of energy has done a good job to keep the price of electricity at a low. So there's only been very low increases on the cost on the increases of electricity over the last 3 years, even though the price that Eswatini is paying to Eskom, where most of the power comes from, has been double-digit growth. They've managed to cushion that and only pass through very small increases to the man on the street. So for that reason, we are hoping, even though the impacts of what's going on in the world will affect the man on the street, it will be getting a bit tougher, but at the same time, these cushions that government has put in place will hopefully have an impact to take out the real bite. So it's just a more gradual increase. As an economy, one always needs to consider if there's an economic impact internally that affects our economy, then we have to do all we can to cushion it internally. Like we did, for instance, when we had the unrest, the reconstruction fund was done internally. It was done by us as an economy to try and cushion it. But if the shock is coming from outside, if it's an external shock, one needs to try to allow those shocks to pass through. So one does certain things, as we've done, to try to cushion a bit. But in time, those shocks need to pass through, because when it comes to external shocks, we need to be able to allow us as an economy to be able to remain relevant. And by government trying to cushion them, all you do is you grow the pressure somewhere else in the economy, and in time, that causes a much bigger problem. If government just says, right, let's stop charging taxes in certain areas, you find at some point you battle to pay for salaries, or you battle to do certain things which governments need to do. And for that reason, one has to ultimately allow these increases to flow through the economy. It means that as prices rise, it means that inflation goes up. It means that companies that are producing goods need to charge more for their goods. But because the whole world is experiencing the same problems, the price of goods do go up, and that obviously ultimately pushes inflation up. But by that happening at the same time, it means that even employers that are then charging more for their goods, the moment wage negotiations come, because inflation is higher, they also end up paying higher salaries. And ultimately, even the man on the street, even though it is an impact on him, ultimately it does wash through, one calls it in economic terms, and it means that they will get higher increases too, and then hopefully be able to afford the higher costs of living, which does affect the man on the street. And so just in very short terms, that's what we're seeing as government, and that's what we're trying to do to cushion the effects.